Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're embarking on a pretty fascinating journey to really understand a massive paradigm shift happening right now in the world of technology. We're looking at exactly how static, hard-coded software is rapidly evolving into dynamic, autonomous AI agents. If you've been wondering how large language models are moving from, simply chatting to actually doing things out in the wild, well, you are in the exact right place.
Okay, let's dive into this. The source material for our explainer today opens with a pretty stark, honest observation. It seems educated, knowledge workers are in trouble, those who work with their minds. And let's be real, with AI models advancing as incredibly fast as they are, there's a very real initial fear out there. People are worried about the rapid advancements of artificial intelligence and the potential for it to just outright replace cognitive labor. But we absolutely cannot just stop at fear.
Instead of getting stuck in that anxiety, our sources completely flip the script. The consensus here is actually incredibly empowering. We don't cry over potential job losses. We stay at the absolute forefront of adoption. By mastering these new agentic tools right now today, we position ourselves to lead the curve rather than getting crushed by it. It's really all about upgrading our own operating systems.
So here is our roadmap for today. We'll be looking at the new era of AI, what tool calling actually is, how the agent loop works, handoffs and multi-agents, the memory layer, and finally, workflows versus AI agents. Just remember, learning this layered architecture takes a bit of iteration and patience, but we'll get through it together.
Section 1. The New Era of AI. Foundations of AI Agents.
So to really understand what an AI agent is, we have to build our understanding from the ground up. Software is always built in layers, right? At the very bottom, level 1, we have the LLM. That's the raw brain. Level 2 is the REST API, which is just the basic connection protocol, making HTTP requests to that brain. Then, at level 3, we saw the chat completion API become this massive industry standard, taking those complex requests and wrapping them into simple developer libraries. But now we've reached level 4, the Agent SDK. This layer sits right on top of everything else, and it brings autonomy, intelligent routing, and true orchestration to that raw brain.
Section 2. What is tool calling? Solving the isolation problem.
You see, a raw LLM is brilliant, for sure, but it is completely isolated in a digital box. It can't search your company database, it can't check the weather. That is exactly where tool calling, also known as function calling, comes in. Think of the LLM as a highly intelligent but paralyzed brain. It desperately needs hands to affect its environment. By providing the AI with specific schemas, which are essentially just instruction manuals for external tools, we empower it to actually take physical or digital actions based on what we ask it to do.
Our source uses a really brilliant, highly tangible metaphor here to explain this. Imagine you ask your AI to make you a juice. The AI looks around its digital environment at the tools you've given it. Maybe it has a manual for a juicer, an AC remote, and a smartphone. It intelligently selects the juicer tool, processes your request, and basically says, okay, pass milk, banana, and sugar to this specific function. The external juicer runs the physical process and returns the result to the AI. It's not just spitting out text anymore, it's making complex decisions about which tools to use to achieve a real-world goal.
Section 3. How the agent loop works. Beating AI amnesia.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that even with tools, we face another massive hurdle, the amnesia problem. The foundational APIs that LLMs use are inherently stateless. That means they instantly forget literally everything you just said the moment a transaction is over. To combat that amnesia, look at the 4 distinct message types required to communicate context back and forth. You have the system prompt, which defines the AI's persona and rules. The user message, which is your specific task. The tool message, carrying the raw data that those external juicers or databases just processed. And finally, the assistant message, which is the final AI output. To keep the AI from forgetting what's happening, all of these messages have to be constantly passed back and forth in one giant bundle.
Doing that manually, that would be an absolute nightmare for developers. So the Agent SDK introduces what's called the agent loop. This loop automatically handles all the heavy lifting. It synchronizes the message history, manages the short-term state, and handles the intricate back and forth of tool execution entirely behind the scenes. It acts as the AI short-term memory during your session, so it actually remembers what you asked it 2 minutes ago, allowing for a super fluid, natural interaction.
Section 4. Handoffs and multi-agents. The bottleneck problem.
As tasks get more and more complex, we inevitably hit a bottleneck where one AI just doesn't have all the required expertise. It raises a really fascinating question.
how do multiple, highly specialized AI agents collaborate with each other seamlessly, without a human sitting there manually routing every single request?
The source perfectly explains this with a three experts in a room analogy. Imagine a central triage agent. Let's call him Qasim. You give Qasim a complex, overarching goal. Qasim realizes, I need database specifications for this, so he seamlessly hands off control to Junaid, the database expert agent. Junaid does his specific research and passes the data back to Qasim. Then, Qasim realizes he needs cost estimates, so he hands off to Amin, the pricing expert agent. Finally, Qasim, the triage agent, compiles all this specialized work and returns one unified, perfect answer to you. The agents literally orchestrate themselves.
Section 5. The memory layer. Long-term retention.
Okay, so while the agent loop handles the short-term session, what about tomorrow? To solve amnesia across entirely different future sessions, we need long-term retention. Memory in these systems isn't just saving a giant exact transcript of everything you've ever said. That would be wildly expensive and completely chaotic. Instead, utilizing tools like LangMem, it's highly intelligent. The AI uses an LLM specifically to evaluate the conversation, extracting only the core details, like your name, your preferences, or the specific tech stack you use. It uses an action to save these vital nuggets to a database. Then, in your next session, it injects those relevant memories right back into the system prompt, so the AI greets you by name and already knows you prefer Python over JavaScript, all without you having to repeat yourself.
Section 6. Workflows versus AI agents. The paradigm shift. And this brilliantly illustrates the absolute climax of our explainer today, because it represents a fundamental, massive shift in how humanity builds software. Notice the rigid train tracks of traditional systems versus the dynamic network of agents. Workflows are predefined, static code paths. A human developer has to sit down and dictate the exact sequence of steps. If A happens, then do B, then do C. But AI agents, they operate on dynamic routing. The LLM itself acts as the reasoning engine. It directs its own processes, it decides which tools to use, and it figures out the path to the goal entirely on the fly based on the specific context of your prompt. We are literally moving from rigid, hard-coded paths to true autonomous problem-solving. So the crucial takeaway is this. AI is now learning dynamically. It's managing its own memory, and it's intelligently routing its own complex multi-agent tasks. Which brings us to a critical question to leave you with today. As the world shifts to this architecture of autonomy, are you adapting and building these intelligent dynamic systems, or are you still stuck writing yesterday's static workflows? The future is agentic, and the time to master it is right now. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I hope you found it as fascinating as I did, and I'll catch you in the next one.